Good afternoon. Uh, this is Brunel Hall, President and CEO of Invest Newark, and we are proud to present a webinar on the NJHMFA Small Landlord Emergency Grant Program. We have with us today a very special and distinguished guest, Mr. Jesse Crawford, who is a lender outreach and market coordinator for the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency. We know that there has been a ton of interest in learning how small landlords can get access to financial assistance in wake of some of the issues that we all faced related to COVID-19. So we wanted to make sure that small landlords, specifically those that reside in the city of Newark, but also those that reside in surrounding areas that are able to assess this webinar, had the ability to get the information you need to make plans to apply for this great program that the NJHMFA was so great about putting together in such a quick amount of time. Before we get started, I just want to thank both Mr. City Medina, who has done a wonderful, wonderful job in marketing several programs targeting assistance for small businesses across the state of New Jersey. Ms. Medina has worked tirelessly and continues to work tirelessly, so please follow Equal Space, follow Mr. City Medina in all that he does, because you'll continue to get good information about some of the small business programs that a variety of the state and local agencies are presenting in wake of COVID-19. I also want to thank Ms. Vanessa Quijano, who is the SVP of Business Development here at Invest Newark, for her great work in putting forth programs that assist small businesses here in the city of Newark. So without further ado, we want to welcome our distinguished guest, Mr. Jesse Crawford. Again, Mr. Crawford has a long tenure in the lending space here in New Jersey and beyond. He has specifically 31 years of finance experience as a loan officer, HUD certified housing and foreclosure specialist, affordable housing specialist, as well as a mediator and HARP director for small and large real estate finance programs. So we're very, very happy for Mr. Crawford to be here. The information that is about to be shared is timely, so I encourage everyone to take notes and to formulate questions for the end of his presentation so that you can get all the information you need to position yourself to take advantage of this great program. Without further ado, I'd like for Mr. Crawford to begin his presentation, and I will sign off. Thank you all for joining us.
Well, thank you, Brunel, for having me. Invest Newark for having us come in today and talk about something of vital importance, and that's help for small landlords throughout the state of New Jersey. Just let me take a moment to talk about what we do at the New Jersey Housing, Mortgage, and Finance Agency. We are a state agency, for those who do not know, that provide financing for housing on all levels, all sectors throughout the state of New Jersey. We provide financing to developers who build multifamily housing, low to moderate income. And we also provide financing to developers who build housing for the disabled, for veterans and seniors alike. And we provide down payment and low interest rate mortgages for single families at first-time home buyers. We have a $10,000 down payment assistance grant that's forgivable after 5 years. The major requirement for that program for the first-time home buyer is that once they close on the home, they live in the home for 5 years as their primary residence, that $10,000 is totally forgiven after 5 years. So our goal throughout the state of New Jersey is to provide affordable housing on all levels in the state of New Jersey. With that said, what I want to talk about today is our small landlord emergency grant program. And do I have access, Vanessa? So. Now, what is the Small Landlord Emergency Grant? It is an emergency housing assistance program for small rental properties in the state of New Jersey. It's intended to support both small landlords and their tenants during this COVID-19 pandemic or the COVID-19 emergency. It's administered through our agency, New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Agency, or you will affectionately hear me refer to it as NJHMFA or HMFA, and it's $25 million that we will be administering through the CARES Act. Now, in New Jersey, approximately 2/3 of the state's small rental properties are considered mom and pop shops or mom and pop properties. Now, given unique circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, both landlords and tenants obviously are facing prolonged economic hardships during the crisis, with the increased risk of foreclosure or eviction. Now, SLEG, as the acronym for this program, is here to directly address those dual threats. One, it provides a grant to ensure operating costs continue unabated by matching missed or reduced payments from April through July of 2020. It ties the landlord with getting much needed help for revenue loss during this period, and it also helps the tenant by allowing the landlord to reimburse them or give them, not reimburse, but I'm sorry, but give them rent forgiveness and late fee forgiveness for that period of time. So it's helping out both the landlord and the tenant. Now, the SLEG program is a grant reimbursement program for lost rental revenue by paying the tenant's owed back rent that may have accrued between April 2020 and July of 2020. I'm going to continually say these dates so you get that ingrained in your head what that period is. That's the landlord's going to be reimbursed for revenue that was lost, April through July of 2020. Now, small property owners who have experienced missed or reduced rent payments can reasonably attribute those losses to the COVID-19 pandemic can apply for these funds. Assistance will be awarded on a unit-by-unit basis, and only the units with low to moderate levels of rent are eligible. SLEG recipients are legally obligated to waive any outstanding back rent and late fees to their tenants that may have occurred during the eligible period. Now, the criteria for the applicant. In order to be eligible for this program, the applicant must be the primary owner of a residential property, not the property manager or someone else working under the owner, but it has to be the owner applying in New Jersey that has been registered with the Department of Community Affairs and their RIMS database or the Registration Inspection Management System as of July 17th, 2020. The applicant must be current on all state and local tax obligations and not be a government entity or public housing authority and not be a condo or cooperative. The property must contain at least 3 and no more than 10 units. I want to repeat that also, 3 to 10 units only. I got a call this week. The guy had a property that had 18 units and he wanted to know if he could apply for just those 10 units of the 18 units. It has to be 3 to 10 total housing units only. And again, this is for those small mom and pop shops between 3 and 10 units to give them some relief and some help. The property must have all fire inspection certificates as of December 31st, 2019, and contain at least one, can we go back here? I don't see the control to go back. Let me see what I got. Vanessa, can you, oh, there we go. Contain at least one non-vacant COVID impacted unit with a net rent deficit between April and July of 2020, meaning the total rent due from the tenant in that time period for the unit exceeds the amount paid by the tenant during the same period. Now, rents charged to COVID impacted units are no greater than the maximum rent thresholds listed on the next slide. So if they're more than the maximum threshold limits by room size or apartment size, they're not going to be eligible for this particular program. And it must not be a seasonal or vacation property. Here's a slide for maximum rent thresholds by bedroom size. So listed by county, I believe it's 21 counties here. A studio 1182 for Atlantic County. 2-bedroom would be 1518. So as long as the rents don't exceed by county these thresholds, and the landlord meets all other criteria, they'll be eligible for this particular grant. Now I want to talk about the grant award details. There are no preset maximum or minimum limits, award limits for this particular program. The grant is awarded, calculated on the basis of the number of eligible COVID impacted units in the property. And it's going to have to correspond with the net rent deficit for those units over that 4-month period between April and July of 2020. Now, to ensure that the program reaches the intended audience or folks, the mom and pop property owners, the most vulnerable during this pandemic, at least 1/3 of the SLEG funds will be reserved for those applicants who register in the RIMS database as individuals or family owners. Again, 1/3 of the SLEG funds will be reserved for those applicants who are registered in the DCA RIMS database as individuals and family owners. On this slide, we have a simple award grant calculation scenario. The first scenario is this. The applicant owns a rental property in Hudson County with 3 1-bedroom apartments that each have a monthly rent of $1,000. If all 3 tenants in those units lost income and were unable to pay rent between April and July of 2020, and so long as the applicant met all other criteria and standards, the applicant would qualify for grant assistance upwards of $12,000 for lost revenue during that period. The second scenario is this. An applicant owns the rental property in Hudson County, same 3 1-bedroom apartments, rent is $1,000. Instead, the 2 tenants could pay only 50% of their rent, and the other tenant was able to pay their full rent for April and May, but was unable to pay for, say, June and July. As long as the applicant meets all the other criteria and standards, the applicant will receive grant assistance up to $6,000. And below we have the simple calculation: 2 units at 500, the net deficit per month times 4 months of non-payment, and then 1 unit times 1,000 net rental deficit per month times 2 months of non-payment, $6,000 in total SLEG assistance. Now, very important, currently, on this slide, we have the application timeline. What I want you to let folks know that you come in contact with or you speak to about this program is right now we have a hotline available for this program from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. And on our website, which I'll give the address a little bit later in the slide, we have a sample application up on the website. So folks can go to the website, pull down the sample application or view the sample application on the web and get a sense of what they need to provide for their application. Because come Wednesday, August 19th, the application period opens up at 9 a.m. And we can expect an influx of applications coming in on that day. And on Wednesday, August 26th, the application period closes promptly at 1 p.m. So we launched this program so in advance we can give folks an opportunity to get all their ducks in a row, gather all their documentation, ask the questions that need to be asked through the hotline, and get those things taken care of. So come Wednesday, August 19th, they can go in and apply and submit their full application in its entirety. This way, if they submit the application in its entirety, then they have a better chance of getting access and getting this grant. On Thursday, August 27th, the computer will randomize all of the applications and the review process will begin. Now, the application status will refresh on an applicant's account on the web, and it will be listed whether or not they're under review or at that time they're on a waiting list because of the number of applications that have come in. So it's important that they get on as quickly as possible on the 19th and enter their application. And again, it closes on August 22nd at 1 p.m. Give me a second here. The application is through a web-based portal. Applications will need to self-register with a valid email address on the application portal before completing the application and log back in, obviously, into the platform to check their status of their application. What's needed for their application? Taxpayer ID, details about their property, including their RIMS property registration number from DCA, a financial accounting of the property's rent revenue from December 2019 through July 2020, a fire cert current as of December 31st of 2019, bank statements for December 2019 through July 2020, and leases to cover all units that the applicant is seeking assistance for. Now, the applicant may apply for SLEG assistance for more than one property, but each property would be considered separately in a random draw. Only the registered primary property owner may apply. You may not use a SLEG award to assist an owner-occupied unit at all. So for instance, you got a 4-family unit and the owner lives in one and he has tenants in the other units that have not paid. He only can seek assistance for his tenants and not himself. SLEG assistance does not cover any late fees directly, but you will be required to waive late fees in addition to outstanding back rent accumulated between April and July of 2020, as stated in one of the previous slides. The SLEG program will ask you to account of the rent paid before the outbreak in March. And if your tenant owed more rent before the outbreak in March than they did after, the unit is not eligible for assistance. If your tenant owed some rent before the COVID outbreak in March, but owed more afterwards, we can attribute that increase to the pandemic and assist with the unit. Only units occupied between April and July 2020 are eligible for assistance under this program. And vacant units will not be assisted. They have to be units occupied and units with a signed lease. Folks will need obviously internet access to submit their application. It can be accessed via our portal or via a web accessible mobile device or a tablet. And we suggest using Firefox or Chrome browsers for the best experience. If your tenant pays cash, the landlord or property owner is going to have to provide evidence of deposit of the tenant's cash or rent in their bank statement. They have to be reflected in their bank statements. The tenant's unit will be eligible for reimbursement as long as the unit meets all other eligibility criteria. And if you're unable to demonstrate deposit of your tenant's cash payment into a bank account, that tenant's unit will not be eligible for reimbursement. NJHMFA will provide an online application in English and in Spanish, and we've contracted interpretation services to support 10 additional languages such as Arabic, Mandarin, Cantonese, just to say a few, and translated versions of the application itself are available in advance of the portal opening. We have an email address for applicants to submit any inquiries to languagehelp@njhmfa.gov to receive a call within 1 business day from a representative who can communicate with them in their primary language. You also can call our hotline and request a call back with an interpreter to help out with any application questions. Requests for SLEG assistance for units with above threshold rents will be denied. You should only apply for SLEG assistance for units that have missed or reduced payments in April, May, June, or July of 2020. Now, once your application is submitted, the only action you can take to change that would be something to rectify in the documentation by one of the HMFA reviewers as described. Well, that shouldn't be in there. I'm sorry about that. But you can't make any changes to your application once it's submitted. The only changes that can be made if during the review process that needs to be clarified by the reviewers at the agency, then that information can be changed on our end. Applicants will be notified in a denial letter if they're denied whether or not they have the option to appeal. If they don't have an option to appeal, it's probably going to be because something was determined to be fraudulent and their application has been disqualified. If they are able to appeal, the applicant will receive a letter, and the applicant has 10 business days to file their appeal with the agency after receiving that letter. We have a few other state resources available here. The COVID-19 Information Hub has a lot of vital links for folks. We got DC Aid tool. We also have housing counselors available for renters who are struggling to make their payments and need help with the HUD certified housing counselor to help them navigate the process of working with their lenders to try to seek some resolution to their back payments and get some relief for their rent. And then we have the COVID-19 NJ.gov renter link that's available. Now, what to do next? Visit our website to review the application, and between August 19th and 9 a.m., submit your application. And you have up until August 26th at 1 p.m. where the portal for the application submission closes. Again, we have our NJ Housing Gov Rentals slash SLEG web address where you can get a sample application. There's an FAQ of frequently asked questions. And below we have our 800 number that you can call between 8 and 8 p.m. to ask any questions. And again, email your questions if you like, if you don't want to call. But the hotline is staffed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with live operators. Now understand that the operators are available to assist with eligibility and operational questions, but they cannot assist in filling out your application or provide any personalized information regarding your submission. They don't have access to any of the applications at all. They can't see anything other than what's coming to the call queue and the questions that are being asked of the call queue. That concludes my presentation. I hope I didn't go too fast. I didn't want to take up too much of your time today, but if anybody has any questions, I think we can go through a Q&A either by something that was typed in, or I don't know if we're going to do video or not, but Vanessa?
Hello, Jesse. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was actually covered so many details. So maybe let's actually go back a couple of slides, because I know we had some questions that people wanted to see the slides more. Specifically, it's the table. So
Sure.
I now have control of the slides, so I'm going to bring us back to the table. Can you go over this again for people? You know, what are these thresholds? You know, if you have multiple properties, please explain again how they can determine.
Well, this chart is the maximum rent that can be charged by bedroom size, basically, for each county. And if the rent is over these amounts here, they're not going to be deemed eligible for the grant. That's it in a nutshell. And I think one of the other questions that you had, Vanessa, if you have multiple properties, as long as the property has 3 units or more, and I'm not talking about 3 separate houses. I'm talking about 1 unit, one house or 1 building, 3 units, 3 or more units. I had one person call me this week. They had 6 houses in Atlantic City, and they felt they qualified, but under the program, it has to be 3 units or more. And unfortunately, we couldn't help them because this program is not designed for that particular scenario.
So just to say again, so they had multiple properties, but they weren't multi-unit?
Exactly.
Okay.
3 units or more, up
All
3
right.
to 10 units.
So just to be clear again, so if you have multiple properties, but they're single family homes, they're not part of this, they cannot apply.
Not for this particular grant, no. There may be some additional funding coming down later for that type of scenario, but this particular grant is for 3 units to 10 units for each property. So if you got someone who has a 10-unit apartment complex owned by that landlord, they qualify. Or if they got a 4-family house, they qualify, or a 3-family house.
Okay. Well, before I open the floor, I'm going to go through some of the questions that have already came in. And I think you've addressed this question already. They're saying they have a residential house in Union, but this program only applies for rentals of 3 units up to 10. So single family homes, again, cannot apply. If it is a 2-family home, also you cannot apply, as Jesse has just explained. Now, regarding the fire certificate, we have a question here. So our Newark Fire Department said they are just, finding out about the fire safety certificate. Now, how about if they only do, certain municipalities, including Newark, only do a 5-year inspection certificate? How will you review that as part of the application?
And that seems to be the norm. From what I understand, and let me back up a little bit. Every property that's applying for these funds has to be registered with DCA's RIM database. And DCA actually schedules an inspection every 5 years. So what we've suggested, and I'll back up and give a scenario. I had a guy who called in and said, I get my property inspected every 5 years by DCA, but I had it scheduled to be inspected right before the pandemic, and DCA didn't come out and inspect, and I couldn't get it inspected because of the situation of COVID. So what we instructed him to do is submit his application with the fire the certificate that he has, and list that as an extenuating a factor in his application, and that application is going to be reviewed specifically for that scenario. So I encourage folks, if you have everything you need and that fire cert might be in question, submit the application anyway and have them review it and see if it can be resolved, rather than not submit that application and then lose out on these funds. Because DC has their database, they have the history of when the properties were inspected, when it was last inspected, and they can determine some things that we can't up front.
Thank you. It's good to know that you're considering the fact that, some municipalities don't do the 5-year, and also under the current conditions, originally scheduled inspections have not been completed yet due to our pandemic, but it's good to know that you are taking that into consideration. So I would suggest they still submit whatever certificate they do have. Okay, great. Now, there was a question regarding, is this only for residential? Is there a program for that covers retail tenants? And, I will share that last week. We actually hosted a webinar with the New Jersey Redevelopment Agency on their small business lease assistance program. That application process was open on this past Monday at August 10th at 9 a.m. I do know that the process, the application process has closed. It's been oversubscribed, but that was available only on Monday. So I'm sure, stay tuned. There's always additional programs that are becoming available, but as these programs come out, the agencies that have been that will be administrating them have been very thoughtful as to how they put out these programs. So definitely stay tuned to Invest Newark, and we'll make sure that we share that information for more programs. So now people are asking, how do you get a copy of your fire certificate? They should definitely contact, as Jesse, as you mentioned, either DCA or their municipal fire department. And another question is actually regarding DCA about the RIMS. The RIMS database. Could you explain that to them, and how they can, if they haven't registered, what they should do, and also how they can get that information if they registered in the past?
Yeah, it's my understanding that any 3 or more multifamily dwellings in the state of New Jersey should be registered in the information inspection management system at DCA. And DCA comes out every 5 years and do it inspection, code inspection, and other things on those properties. If you're not registered currently in the DCA database as of, I believe it's December of 2019, you're not going to be eligible for these particular funds. You needed to be in the database prior to this being rolled out. If you're not registered and you have a multifamily property, I suggest you register so you're in the database. And if any other additional funds come down the pike, you're in the database and you can apply for them. But unfortunately, if you're not registered as of now, you won't be able to apply for these funds.
Now, how about if you are a property owner of a 3-family unit and you occupy one of the units?
Mm-hmm.
Can that property owner apply?
You can apply for lost revenue for your tenants only.
So they would only have 2 tenants though?
Right, they live in one and they rent the other 2 out, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they can apply for assistance for the 2 units which their tenants occupy, not their own, not the owner.
Oh, that's very good to know. Let's see here. I think all the other questions were also related to the fire certificate in the Q&A.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. And you know, again, I suggest if you've met all the other criteria, you're in the RIMS database, and you have been getting your properties inspected over the years, I suggest you submit your application and all the proper documentation you have with it, and let DCA then handle it from there.
Okay. So I'm going to unmute one of our attendees that has raised their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Brogan, I've unmuted you. You can speak and address your question to Jesse. While we're waiting for Chris to join in, there's another one. I will allow Devin. You know, you can also speak.
I saw a question about retail rent. Retail rent, that's considered mixed use, and that would go under the NJRA's program. There's a small grant program for that mixed use properties.
Hello?
Okay. Hi, Devin.
Yep, speaking.
You can give your
Yeah,
question.
thank you guys so much for sharing this info. Super helpful. Just a quick question. So I actually have a newly constructed home. I'm not sure where to find this RIM database, or where to find this fire cert.
Okay, so this home that you have is a multi-family?
Correct. It's a 3-family home.
3-family. And you're trying to find out if you already registered with the RIMS database?
Correct, because I had no idea about it, and I'm actually from New York, so I didn't even know about anything. No, these types of things in Jersey.
Yeah. I can Vanessa.
Yes.
If you can get me his information, I can get that info over to him directly.
Vanessa, if you could also make me a part of that communication, Devin, so that we can make sure we facilitate the response. And Vanessa, will keep you queued in as well.
Great. Thank you, Medina.
Always.
All right, thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know, as Devin just mentioned, you know, there are property owners that don't live in New Jersey, so you know, also be aware that you know, there will be others applying, or maybe if you know of others, you should definitely share this opportunity. So we're going to go through the questions in the chat room and see. First, you know, I will be able to share the slides with attendees. I'd prefer if you would send the request to me, so I ensure that I'm sending it to the correct email address. You can email your request to me at vquijano@investnewark It's in the chat room. Please put NJHMFA deck in the subject line. So we've addressed some of the questions about, two families. Unfortunately, two-family property owners cannot apply for this grant. As I mentioned, there are other programs. I will also make sure to look into or share the Newark's own lease assistance program from the mayor's office. Fire certificates are definitely required for this grant. Actually, can you go over all the documentation that people need? Because I know there's you mentioned a couple. I also obviously touched about the fire certificate, but can you talk about all the documentation required?
Yeah, if you want to flip back to that particular slide.
Sure.
So it's up on screen, and everybody's going to get a copy of who requests get a copy of this deck, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Am I going? Let's see. No, I think I need to go forward.
Keep going. Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, they need their tax identification number, obviously, and they're going to need details about the property, which includes their registration number that's assigned to them by the DCA registration inspection management system. Financial accounting of the property's rent revenue from 2019 of December through July of 2020. Fire certificate current as of December 31st, 2019. And bank statements between December 19 through July of 2020. And leases that cover all units that the applicant is seeking assistance for.
Okay. And I also, going over your the FAQs, saw that at some point they'll need a W-9, their W-9 form.
I'm not familiar with that. You saw that in an FAQ. I'm not familiar with that at all.
It'll be, once they've gone through, submitted their application.
It might be part of the application checklist on the website. I'm not sure if that's needed or not, to be totally honest.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure people are prepared and they have the forms they need.
Yeah.
And I think the other important part, it's not just that the documentation is available digitally. I think a lot of people, they have their lease in front of them, they have the other documentation, and they'll need to submit that to you electronically.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, it explains exactly how you can upload your documents through the portal, and there's a checklist there and a sample application of what's needed to submit your app. So I highly recommend that they go to the website and look at the application and see what's needed to get familiar with it, so they're prepared.
Yes, and I must say the website is really helpful. The languages are all available there on the right side. So if whatever, in 11 different languages. Now, one of the questions here is, what if the tenants do not have a social security number? Is that going to be, what's going to be requested of the tenant's information?
Only that's request. I'm sorry?
The tenant, or is any
No, I heard someone else in the background. I'm sorry. Only thing that's required is a lease that covers a unit for that tenant. A lease from the landlord.
Regarding the type of unit, you did show studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. What if it's a 2-family home but the owner lives in the basement, so it's actually a 3-unit?
If it's registered property information and taxes as a 2-family, it's not going to qualify. It has to be registered as a licensed 3-family unit in our RIMS database. It can't be something that was just modified and because someone is occupying that space, it's not truly a three-family. It's really a designated two-family. So if it's designated a three-family and it's registered in the RIMS database, I don't see any problem with that. If it's designated as a two-family, it's not going to work. It's not going to be granted.
Mm-hmm. Going back in the Q&A section, how far back does the bank statements have to go?
They're looking for bank statements from December of 2019 through July of 2020.
Okay. Now, how about if you know, they have individuals renting a room versus, you know, it's individual room tenants versus a whole apartment?
Yeah, that's not going to that's not going to be approved. It's by room, bedroom, and the appropriate amount of rent that's charged for the number of rooms, bedrooms in the unit. So if you got three apartments in one unit, the 3 units in that building, and they're all 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, and even though you might be leasing or renting the rooms individually, that's not going to count as anything other than 2 bedrooms, 2 apartments with 2 bedrooms.
Okay. Now, how about if you know, I know we've asked for leases. How about property owners that are, you know, have their tenants renting month to month at this time with no lease? You know, for example, how about if their lease ended at the end of March, or even at the end of June, and you know, the tenant was like, well, I'm not sure what's happening, so I need to go month to month, and there was no lease.
In that scenario, I suggest they provide some type of proof that there was a lease signed up until that period, and then some documentation saying that they went from month to month on that period. But according to what I understand from the guideline, leases are needed to cover all units from the period of April through July of 2020. Now, they certainly can submit their application and see you know what happens, but there's no guarantee. But a lease should be provided for that period of time that they're seeking for the lost revenue.
Okay.
And I think the best thing to do, a lot of these questions can be answered on the website under the FAQ section. I really strongly urge folks to go to the website. One, again, I'm going to stress, view the application and see firsthand the interface itself and what you need to provide, and also go through the FAQs. And a lot of the questions can be addressed there. There are also resources and telephone numbers listed there if you have a question such as fire inspection for DCA, that will help out and get a better understanding whether or not they can apply or be granted these funds.
Just bringing up the links back up on this page. I believe it's this slide that has
Yes, the COVID-19, that's for the renters. And then we have go back, there's another link we have for here we are, njhousing.gov rentals/SLEG.
right. You know, for people that are asking about their fire certificate, you should go to your municipal fire department for your fire certificate. In Newark, on our business portal, in the City of Newark's business portal page, there is a link right there to renew your fire certificate. You know, as you've heard from Jesse, that is something that the Department of Community Affairs has a database, so they'll be able to also see there if you were when was your last certification. And as you mentioned, you know, regarding the some of the questions, a lot of the questions I'm seeing as well is addressed in the FAQs. The FAQs is 10 pages long, answers all the questions. Jesse, and you can verify those questions are also translated into multiple languages as well, so they can it can
Yeah.
address everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I think one of the things I wanted to make sure that you addressed again is the fact that is there going to be any amount that can be requested? You said there was no limit or minimum or maximum.
Each award amount is going to be based on the landlord's documentation provided of their losses during that particular period. So it may be, it's going to be different for every applicant based on their units and what they've lost in revenue from that tenant during that period of time. Because some tenants were able to pay partial rent and others weren't able to pay at all. So they're going to factor in all those things and determine how much is awarded to each person.
Mm-hmm. And application process again opens on next Wednesday at 9 a.m. And they have a full week, so there's no you will be receiving all taking in all applications during that week. There's no time that you'll be closing it and saying anyone it's oversubscribed or any like that.
No, we're going to take applications from the 19th through the 26th. And on the 26th at 1 p.m., the portal's going to shut down. And then they're going to deal with going through the apps and then determining who is going to move on to the next phase. And then they'll have the review process of the applications and determine what awards people are going to get.
Okay. Now on the actual application portal, I know you said a sample of the applications online, which is great. How does the application portal work? If they're answering questions and, you know, it looks like they're not eligible, will they just be told, thank you, you're not eligible, or how will that go? Will they complete the whole thing and find out later they really weren't eligible?
The way I understand it, once they submit their application and the portal closes and then we begin to sort and review these, you're either going to get a letter saying that you basically are moved on to the next level, or you're on a waiting list. One of the slides here has the proper terminology, but basically, if your application was accepted, you go into the queue. If we've reached beyond that point of applications at that time, you put on a waiting list, those applications that are denied will receive a letter saying they were denied and whether or not they have an option to appeal, and they can appeal within 10 days.
So what's the timing you think will be the review process? You know, after the 26th, is there a 10 business day window of review?
No, we don't have that information just yet, how long it's going to take per application, but at a later date, if we have that information, I'm pretty sure they will make it known what that time frame is. But as right now, I don't have that information.
Okay. You said again, the FAQs online, definitely helpful. The tables in there, the list of, documentation, what you'll need, internet access, an email address, etc. It's all in there. The hotline, is that, available right after this call? Anyone can call the hotline?
It's open right now, open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Great.
Including the email, they're really responsive too. If the questions are direct, Vanessa, the email is also really a great touch point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you, Medina. I just want to cover one more point, and Medina, I definitely want you to chime in here. Just to be clear with everyone, again, this is for residential property landlords. If it's a mixed use property, Jesse, can they apply? Can the landlord apply for the residential units, even though there's a commercial unit?
Not with this fund. This is strictly residential. The mixed use properties were through the NJRA program.
Okay. So again, yeah, this isn't for business rent. The business rent program was with the NJRA. Unfortunately, that has that process has already closed. But again, please stay tuned. Several agencies have been continuing or having a second phase of their program, depending as funding is available. So Medina, I'd love for you to share, as a small business owner, as a Newark resident, as someone that's also, helping all the agencies make sure we get all this information. Love to hear from you.
So I think moments like this are really important, Vanessa, just to everything you said. Invest Newark is a resource for you all. This program, what I applaud Jesse and Chuck and Katie at NJHMFA and the entire team, what they've done is develop a product for the very most in need of us, especially if, as Jesse was saying, you're living on site and you've done the due diligence and hard work it is to have these smaller properties developed and to be a landlord and an owner. So I'm encouraging you all to explore it from a sense of calm, so that you can see that obviously as property development and real estate development is a complex world, this program seeks to answer all of those complicated nuances and scenarios. And we really need you to calmly and concisely understand that while these are the program outlines, as Jesse's saying, they provided you what is on screen, which is a direct way to have your questions answered. I always want to tell everybody, look through the FAQs. They really try to anticipate every variable of question, and the FAQs can really help you. For those who may not have English as a first language, they have translated it, and I really encourage you to look at those applications. They are available now, Jesse, because I just heard from Amy. They're available now for you to also look at in 11 different languages. So just go about this with as much calmness and as much checklist mentality as you can. And also giving Burnell and Vanessa all of the respect if you are finding it difficult, and if the answer went above your head, because that could happen all the time, then reach out to Vanessa and the team at Invest Newark so that they can explore your particular case and make sure that you put in the strongest application you can during the window.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Medina. Yes, here at Invest Newark, I have a team that have walked people through the application process. For a lot of people, this is daunting. They've never done any of these type of applied for any funding. There's a fear of, what information I'm giving. Is it, how's it gonna affect me? But we're here to help you. So as Medina mentioned, we have Spanish speaking, we have Portuguese speaking, obviously English speaking to help you through this process. Jesse, I want to thank you so much for bringing this information to us, to Newark, to Invest Newark with Medina. This, again, the program is open for properties in New Jersey. The property owner may reside in a different state, though. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And and regarding this is only for residential. The NJRA program that closed was for small businesses, lease assistance, and as I mentioned, there are always other programs that are that will be coming up. Please reach out to us, and we'll let you know more. But Jesse, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Vanessa.
And I think all the information is up there, the website, the hotline, the email address, and I'm going to assume also on the hotline they have other multiple language that can be covered. So definitely reach out to the NJHMFA regarding this program specifically, so you're best prepared to apply next week. All right, thank you everyone, and have a good afternoon. And again, you can reach out to any of us with any of your questions going forward.
Apply.
Apply.
Apply
for everything that's available as much as you can.
Yes.
Exactly. And even on that side, Vanessa, you were right. And what Jesse said as well. I know NJRA has their program fully subscribed, but if you do have a mixed use property, there is no harm in getting in contact with them and staying inside that network of information, as the state is continually looking to create new programs and new ways to support everyone in New Jersey.
And support those needs that arise.
Correct. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Take
Have a
care.
great
Be
day.
well.
Take care, everybody.
Be safe.